Couple of weeks has flown by, and it sort of reminds me of how it used to be, Martin. It always seemed to fly by, those 2 weeks, and it's flying by again.
Ha.
Comes around quick, doesn't it?
It doesn't.
And here we are in Auckland. You're popping through on business again, so we're in a studio together, and we're here to talk aviation. The last podcast... Reboot was the word we were looking for.
Reboot, there you go.
Episode. This is a reboot. But the reboot will have a pause because we've got Christmas and holiday commitments. But we'll be back in probably early January.
Yes, I should be able to report. I won't say where I'm going, but I'm going to a place which I doubt many people have been to, which will probably have quite an interesting airport.
Okay, well, we'll find out. Maybe when you come back, we can
if I come back,
figure that we could have a little contest. We'd try and figure it out. You could give us clues, and we could zero in on it. Well, I hope it is nice for you, even though no one can imagine what it might be like, because you haven't given us very much information at all.
And I've never spoken. Well, I have spoken to someone who's from there.
Yeah,
but. It sounds pretty interesting.
Okay.
Off the beaten track.
All right, okay. Well, we'll look forward to finding out about that next episode. When we come back early in the new year, I'm going to have some interviews, and we're going to start including people from outside of New Zealand, contributors. A few characters coming up there, but all well placed to know the news. But for this program, it's Martin and myself. Now, where do you want to start? I know because you're the ultimate fanboy of the A321 Neo LR.
I am
but so
possibly too even-handed.
No, you just need to mention that and your face lights up. But I know why. This is... Airbus have weaponized the A321.
Well, it just is amazing how far that airframe has come. And it's also amazing when you look at it, and especially the A321, those wings are too small, right? They just look too small. But they've put the winglets on and everything. And I was sitting in a Qantas A330-200 looking at the seat configuration, as one does.
Yep.
And I realized it had 199 economy seats and 36 business class seats.
Right.
And I'm thinking, man, this is a big, heavy, wide body, and it's got less people than the A320. Of course, it's a different seating density because they're for different routes and everything. But for Trans-Tasman, because I was on a Trans-Tasman flight, I'm thinking surely the A321 would be more useful than the A330.
But with that range now.
Well, this is the thing. So Aer Lingus have just put theirs into service, and they are offering Dublin to Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Whoa.
That's a long way.
It is. It's a long way in.
It's a long way in, yeah.
After going over the Atlantic.
And then when you do a few range, if you go to Great Circle Mapper, that fantastic website, and start entering a few. It's amazing where you can reach from a country like Singapore with an A321 LR. It wouldn't surprise me if there were a few airlines going to concentrate on that aircraft, set themselves up in key hubs. I mean, Dubai, their regional airline would be sort of a super regional airline with A321s. You can get a long, long way. Yeah. New Zealand, you can get far from here, but not to anywhere particularly useful.
Well,
but Perth would be a good one.
Perth is an obvious one.
Yeah.
What about...
Singapore's just on the edge.
How are we looking for Hawaii? Too far?
Yeah, too far with a big load. Yeah. But you could stop. One place.
Well, you could do. Well, I'm not going to second guess it, but so what? The old configured A330 types are redundant now next to
on
these machines, and everyone who had a 757 too, by the way.
Absolutely, yeah. If a 757 is obviously history, which is why people are getting rid of them now. Suddenly there's a lot more out there than there ever used to be.
But there seems to be a need for that size narrow body.
Well, it comes down to the landing fees. It's going to be very popular with the charter airlines because they just don't want to pay the big money to land a big heavy plane at an airport, and they don't mind cramming a few people in, and people are happy to pay the money. I can't wait to fly on the Air New Zealand one because the way they've configured it is the middle seat slightly offset and a little wider.
Okay.
So it might actually almost be a benefit to get a middle seat.
Right, and it seems that the new engines are reliable.
Yeah. I don't know if you were reading on, was it on airliners.net? They had an actual flight report from one of the Air New Zealand pilots, not flying an LR, but flying a new 321.
Right.
He says it has the feel of a 777,
Wow.
Yeah, it's got the engine noise, but it's muted because although they're not that far away, they're so quiet that it sounds like they're further away.
Yeah.
He had nothing but good things to say about it.
Yeah. So I wonder how they're going to do on sales then, because like I say, how many 75s were out there? 600-700?
A lot
still.
And Boeing's trying to muddy the waters, and with their
well, they're sort of blocked off a bit here.
Well, this is the thing,
Check.
They keep talking about the 797 middle of the market aircraft and everything, and it sounds great.
Well, isn't that the A321LR right now, as you describe it?
Well, this is the thing.
Or with another wing.
That's the A322 that people keep talking about, and there's a suspicious number of very professional-looking drawings and sketches around that make you think that, geez, maybe a lot more thought's gone into this than people are admitting to. But yeah, the classic blocking maneuver by Airbus will be Boeing announces the 797, which will more than likely be made out of aluminium, which is not such a huge endorsement for the 787 construction method. It'll have a carbon wing, but the fuselage possibly, quite likely, in fact, be made out of aluminium. Twin aisle, a sort of medium body like the 767. Airbus slap a new wing on the A321, call it the A322, put another couple of fuselage frames in it.
How much longer could it stretch, do you think? Because there will be a limit, but
I think they're saying with the undercarriage and the engine clearance they got now, they can put another 3 meters into it, so 2 meters ahead of the wing and 1 meter behind the wing.
Remember the 75300? They put quite a...
that was a fantastic
length
plane. I tell you what, that plane was good looking, but it was a fantastic looking plane.
What?
The 767-400.
No, true.
Mate, that was nice.
It was slightly longer, wasn't it?
Oh.
And it had the raked tips.
It looked really nice. I saw one in Johannesburg. Delta were flying at Johannesburg with a stop in Dakar.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's a very nice looking aeroplane.
Yeah.
Yes, and apparently it had the 777 cockpit, because did you know that the 767 nose and the 777 nose, up to about 2 frames behind the window, are exactly the same.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But I never, I guess that the curve is still going up.
Yeah.
And they just cut it off and they grafted it onto
the front of the 777. Does that mean that there is, in terms of perception and situational awareness, that there's a similar view?
I guess. I certainly, I don't know whether the heights would be different. I think
there is a common rating, isn't there, between that 767-400 and the 777?
Yeah, because they got the same cockpit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. And didn't the 767-400 need... You had to be pretty careful on over-rotating, and it had over-rotation protection because the back was
it was long.
A very long
But I don't ever recall there being a problem.
No.
Reading about a problem.
No.
Look very sharp. Yes, some configurations just look
good.
They get it right.
And the A321's one of them, the new one. The A321 Neo is one of them. And, I'm predicting great things for the A321LR.
Right, okay.
Especially in this part of the world. But, coming to New Zealand as opposed to New Zealand operating.
So Aer Lingus showing the way, and that's a very long sector. Speaking of long sectors, Singapore's service direct to the States from Singapore has created a glut of premium economy seats.
Right.
What's happened here? How does that?
So that plane has essentially nobody on it, right?
Yeah.
It's first class, and the rest of it, which I think is a really good thing. Singapore have not put economy seats on it, right? Because it would be torture. Yeah. So it's got 67 business class seats and 94 premium economy seats. So there's not many people on that plane. And it's created a glut. It's more premium economy seats than that route is used to seeing. And while they build up passenger numbers on that plane, you can now get a premium economy seat on that direct flight for cheaper than you can normally get a premium economy seat on the normal Singapore Airlines flights which stop in Japan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it's 20 non-stop flights a week. That's a lot of premium economy seats.
They're putting a lot into that. They must really believe this is going to be
so that's 1,880 premium economy seats and 1,340 business class seats.
Okay. Yeah.
The benefit of doing podcasts as opposed to radio?
What's that?
Not too bad if you don't turn your phone off.
Well, it's a fact of life these days.
It is.
I have been enjoying the
used to it, everybody.
The photos coming through of the A350 1000s. That is beautifully proportioned, that
nice
aircraft.
Nice looking plane, eh?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're looking at a 777 right there. pretty well.
Yeah, the nose, they've got the nose right, but yeah, there's a lot of nice looking planes out there. And now, the 787-900 I think looks very nice.
Yeah.
The 787-800, that looks kind of sporty, like it's a lot shorter.
Yeah.
There was one parked at the gate in Brisbane the other day, and yeah, it's almost unusual to see an 800.
Right.
And it was parked right next door to a 900, and you could see the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, the aircraft is, the cockpit windows, it's got a very good look. It's
the wing looks very graceful with that sort of curved tip.
Yeah, very organic.
Yeah.
All right, so that's good. Spirit is the most on-time airline in America.
I've never flown Spirit, eh?
Neither have I. I remember seeing them early on in the 2000s, and they were flying MD-80s or something. And
they all start with
DC-9s. It was even
They all start with DC-9s, don't they?
Yeah, I got a bit of footage of it, them sort of blasting off from O'Hare.
There's something about that 2-aisle 3 seating which everyone likes it.
Yeah.
The DC-9 had it. The MDs all had it.
Yeah.
The A320s got it.
The early 737s.
The early 737s before they got.
But they were wider.
Yeah.
It's not so cluttered.
I was always happy when I was living in the States, which was too long ago now. I was flying on an MD-80 or whatever it is, and you think, oh mate, I got a seat near the front.
Yeah.
Couldn't hear anything.
Yeah. Oh gosh, they were quiet up front, weren't they?
Only one person next to me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I flew on a US Air DC-930.
Yeah.
And also on an what was that? Air Midland? No. British Midland Airways.
Okay.
They had DC-9s as well. Flew from London to Dublin on an old DC-9. Yeah. But people call them Mad Dogs, don't they?
Yeah, Mad Dogs.
And,
the MDs,
and those American Airlines ones too.
Yeah.
Remember they had 300 of them or something?
Yeah.
It was massive. Did quite a few flights. Very quiet up front.
Yeah.
Especially the 717. Oh, they got that so right.
Yes.
That was beautiful plane.
I flew SAS once with a colleague. We were flying from Zurich to Denmark, Copenhagen, and he'd probably had some bad wine the night before, so it had affected him quite badly.
Yeah.
And we all managed to get seats up front, and he had a seat right near the intake, which was almost shockingly close to the intake.
You look out the window, it's right next to your head.
And you keep thinking, one of those blades lets go. But the actual working bit was behind the last couple of seats.
It's still pretty close. It was You're looking right into that fan.
Real close, yeah.
JT8D.
He didn't have a good trip.
No.
No.
Okay.
Serves him right, actually.
This guy's... so Spirit, they fly A320s now, I think. And I've got this sort of unusual livery. And I think they're a discount carrier too, aren't they? Yeah.
Cheap ass.
This guy Neeleman, he keeps popping up all the time. He was the man behind JetBlue, though I think he was associated with airlines even before that, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's always been an airline guy. He started JetBlue, and he did his missionary. He's a Mormon.
Yeah.
And he did his missionary work in Brazil, so he speaks Portuguese.
Right. And
I think he lived in Portuguese for longer than his missionary work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a strong Brazilian connection.
And he set up a carrier there.
He set up Azul, which means blue.
And that's like big.
Big. But I don't know if he's involved in Azul in the moment.
Well, but he was instrumental in setup.
Very much part of the startup.
Now his name comes up again.
Yes, he is starting. I think the sort of temporary name people are calling it is Moxie.
Oh,
Moxie.
And
he has got funding. He's got $100 million funding from other airline executives, because in terms of airlines, everything he touches does seem to turn to gold.
Yeah, exactly.
He's putting a business plan together which involves buying 100 Bombardier CS300s or A220s, as they're now called, which is, I think, is a bit unfortunate that they changed the name that quickly. But anyway, Bombardier
they must have felt there was a need.
Yeah. Anyway, he's looking at getting a whole bunch of those, and he wants to do a new take on a low-cost airline where it's low cost but not low service.
Right.
And he wants to service, and the A220 makes this possible. He wants to service very much secondary airports in the United States, but he says with the plane, he can use small airports, he can fly a long way, so international's definitely on the cards.
Right.
Middle America, South America, Western Europe. And he wants to do it all via an app.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
So the booking system he won't need to plug into anybody's booking system or build his own booking system.
Sort of like the Uber of the air.
He wants to go and joining, obviously not the same city pairs because he's going to be using secondary airports, but he wants to offer similar routes for at least half, if not 75% cheaper than the competition. So he says if you're paying $300-400, which from American regional airports now, if you're up in like Binghamton, New York,
it's not that cheap.
It's not cheap. No, you'll be paying $300-400 a leg on a normal price to get from upstate New York down to one of the big centres. He wants to do that for $100.
Wow.
So he'd probably fly you from Binghamton, New York, which is a regional airport, and he'd take you somewhere in Long Island or somewhere like that.
There are plenty of runways long enough all the way along there to accommodate that.
I mean, he can put you into a business airport.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That plane will do it, but still fly you 2,500 miles with a full load from short runways.
Yeah.
So he's quite excited about that, cool. and he's done his maths.
Yeah.
We assume, and he reckons that's the only plane that can do it for him.
The app thing is brilliant because that keeps everyone in the same system, his system, right?
Yeah.
And you could. The expansion potential could be amazing.
You know, it's
you just apply that to just market after market.
Yeah, and you I'm sure all airlines are doing it now, but he'll start off from the beginning. He'll have no legacy systems. He'll go and rent a server off, one of the Amazon Web Services or Google or anything. So his startup costs will be next to nothing.
Here's what I thought of when we were talking about this pre-recording, but as we brought it up here too, it's the same as those scooters. A few months ago, there were no scooters anywhere.
They're everywhere, hey?
No one had even said anything.
Yeah.
Now, it's like they've been there forever. People use them so naturally, and it's all controlled through that app system.
Through that Lime app. And I've used them in 3 cities now.
And that's huge disruption, right?
Huge.
This is the same.
There's a guy who was on Radio New Zealand.
But in the same.
On Radio New Zealand this afternoon on Jim Moore's panel. I don't know if you've ever heard the show.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, okay, that's good. One of the guys said he rode to the airport from downtown Auckland on a Lime scooter.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, he said it took him about 35-40 minutes.
If it's under an hour, you're doing great on that. See, now no one was talking about them a few months ago.
No.
Maybe 6 months ago. Now they're everywhere. He's going to do really well out of this, you can just tell.
I was working a show in Sydney a few weeks ago for a friend, and I had to go and get some supplies for the stand. And I walked out of the venue. There was a Lime electric bicycle with a basket on the front. I've got the Lime app on my phone because I just wanted to try it anyway when I was here once before. Got on the bike, rode 3 kilometres, loaded up the basket, rode it back. It cost me like $3.
Did you ride 3 kilometres, or the bike?
Well, the bike
electric?
Did it, and it's not a particularly sleek looking bicycle, but
it doesn't need to be.
And Sydney's quite hilly, right. And this is just going uphill, downhill, no worries. I mean, you had to pedal; it's pedal assist, but you didn't have to pedal much. Let's be honest. It was brilliant. No, Neeleman will do well, because his startup costs will be low. They'll lend him the money to buy the planes.
Well, he's got a track record that's unbeatable.
The app will cost him nothing to set up.
Nothing.
You don't have to buy a computer system because everyone's got their computer system in the pocket.
Totally. Yeah.
Put some seats up there, home you go. No, it'll be pretty good. If I go to the States and that's started, I will definitely give that a crack.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We're going to talk before we're finished here about that being applied to space, which is going to be mind-blowing for people who haven't caught up with it. Here's an item of interest. Air France has appointed a female CEO. So? Yeah. Her name is...
Chauvinist France?
Are you good with French pronunciation?
Depends.
Anne?
Oh, that's a tough
Rigail. Regale. There she is.
Yeah,
Regale. Okay. 27-year company veteran, previously an executive vice president, first woman to lead the French carrier, formed in 1933.
I think they're going to work out a way to have KLM take them over and put a bit of Dutch.
Well, it says here, parent company Air France KLM Group will continue to be led by a man.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. KLM should be running that airline and it would work.
I think whether the CEO is male or female probably doesn't matter too much. It says, few women, I'm reading this article here, USA Today, few women have run large airlines. Carolyn McCall was CEO of British low-cost carrier EasyJet for 7 years until leaving this year to run British broadcaster ITV. And Christine Widener, the woman in the June photo of CEOs, leads Flybe.
Okay.
European. But they're having trouble, though, isn't it?
That used to be British Midland.
European regional airline that has fewer than 100 planes. And Air Wisconsin in the US is headed by a woman, Christine Deister, CEO.
Well, good on them.
At Cape Air, Linda Markham. Well, there's a few around, but Air France sort of having a ton of problems? Has she inherited a mess?
Yeah.
Do you think she can sort it out? Because last week,
I don't think you can.
Last podcast, I think you made it very clear that not many people like to fly Air France.
No, and I don't think you can sort out Air France. So, yeah.
Okay, so good luck to her.
Good luck to her. I hope she's successful.
Do you think she might have one of those bright yellow vests in the car? Isn't that wonderful? We talked about that last podcast, but it struck me since we were talking about that health and safety is eating itself. They made such a thing about health and safety that now the signature calling card graphic of health and safety is the
makes a mockery of
the vest, the high vis, and it's turned it into this thing.
And the POMs are doing it now.
It's health and safety and officiousness and everything. It's eaten itself.
Yes.
They've only got themselves to blame.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's ironic. Is that the word?
It is ironic.
It's ironic.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
it's farcical as well.
But that's good to see. A woman CEO of Air France. Let's hope she can turn that around. There's that Italian airline that the Qataris have backed. Have you looked at that story? I might bring that up while we're talking. And you see Qatar come up quite often in aviation news, and it's always the guy we like having a problem with something. And of course
Al Baker
and Saudi cut off their airspace, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, they're very unhappy with each other.
Yeah.
Al Baker, or Al Bakar as he probably prefers to be called.
Yeah, Al Bakar, and he gets grumpy, doesn't it?
He gets very grumpy, but it's all it's a stage show.
I'll get to that story.
It's an amusing aside.
I'll get to that story shortly because I want to pick up on that because it was quite interesting, but I don't have it right in front of me. The world's first Christian airline is reportedly set to take off. Wow. They're there to support churches and missionaries.
But I thought most of the churches. What state is it in?
Texas.
I'm pretty sure most of the missionaries in that they just bought themselves Gulfstream 5s with the congregation's cash.
Those TV pray-ins to raise money. They actually say specifically for a new personal jet.
Yeah.
Because the Lord needs me to get around.
Yeah, so why would you need a Christian airline? Because, unless he's just borrowing his mate's jets.
The ministry, known as Judah One, announced last week that the Federal Aviation Administration had accepted their application to switch from a private operator to becoming its own airline.
Okay, well, that's brilliant.
Currently serves Christians travelling around the world and domestically for mission trips and religious tours.
Well, there you go.
Serving missions-minded Christian people of all denominations travelling to the mission fields of the world.
Well, except that denomination, right? Another. There will be one they won't accept. It'll be awful. Your hands, God's love, our wings. Okay. It's there. Let's hope they've got a good maintenance record. Your strap line. Well, they call it the Jesus bolt. That's in the helicopter, though, isn't it? Okay, but sure, whatever. Literally whatever. I think they're flying MD-80s. Of course they are. Well, there are plenty around. Yeah. Plenty around. Yes, I'm just trying to find the story that I mentioned before about the Qataris. I want to get to it. Just bear with. In the meantime... I thought Etihad bought airlines all over Europe. They had an interest in just about... It wasn't Etihad. It was Qatar backed airline. Italy. Oh, because Qatar are using it as a way to get into the States with extra flights. Okay, here we go. I think it's called Air Italy. Yes. And they're using it to get around what? Yeah, they're going to use it to get more slots in America. So they're going to feed people into the Air Italy network, and Air Italy's going to start flying to New York. Right. Or somewhere. Well, they've just taken delivery of their first 737 MAX plane. Yeah. At Malpensa Airport earlier this year. In fact, quite a bit earlier this year. This is not a recent picture I'm looking at back in May. So they've been around for a bit. It's now caught in the middle of a simmering dispute over government subsidies between the largest US airlines and state-owned Qatar Airways. It owns 49% of Air Italy. It's planning to serve Los Angeles and San Francisco from next year from Milan. Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's... I don't,
Qatar Airways agreed to open its books and said it did not have plans to launch flights between the US and destinations other than its home country, according to the Trump administration. Similar agreements were struck in May with United Arab Emirates carrier Abu Dhabi-based Etihad and Dubai-based Emirates Airlines.
This is okay. I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here, but this is typical. The Americans get all bent out of shape when people do things, but when their airlines go and they get particularly bent out of shape about government subsidies and all this type of thing, but every time they go bankrupt and the government forgives them billions in debts, that's not seen as a subsidy. That's all right. This reminds me, and here I go, the Americans are getting very, very agitated about Huawei.
Yeah.
And the fact that all their equipment's apparently got a back door in it, right?
Yes.
The German security, I won't say security police and the German in the same word, but the German security agencies have come out and said they've audited the Huawei systems, and they said, we have no evidence that there's a back door in these systems.
Right.
However, there's plenty of evidence, because it's in the public domain, that Cisco's had back doors in it for years.
Yes.
And the Americans, under the Five Eyes people, have been bugging everybody they can for years.
Don't they, in some parts of the world, actually have boxes where all the cables go through their box and then carry on, so they can intercept everything?
Yes. So you're all doing it.
The word for that is propaganda, is what you're getting towards.
Plus, you wait until the Official Secrets Act lets things go, and it turns out that Apple, Google, and Facebook were all set up by the CIA. Not that I'm a conspiracy theorist.
Well...
But it was. It all was.
Anyway, with regards to the Italian version of Qatar, we are strongly opposed, and we together, Delta, American and United, are very closely aligned on the issue. United CEO Oscar Munoz said on a call with reporters last week, the expansion is an in-your-face to our administration on agreements that have been reached. So they're grumpy.
I don't give a monkeys what airline presidents in America say.
Yeah, well, they're obviously feeling a little threatened.
Upset.
They're upset.
Yeah, well, boo-hoo.
And they're banding together.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about this other disruptive thing. We had a phone conversation earlier in the week, and it'd be a little bit of a stretch to say you were breathless, but I could see where you're coming from.
Awesome.
What is about to happen in online connectivity and the scale that it's about to happen at is going to blow people's minds, and people in this field of work or employment or whatever have got to start thinking about their future.
Sell your telecom shares now. You heard it here first.
Because if this guy does this...
There's a bit of an if.
But the thing is, there's been a few big ifs on him before, and he's carried them all off.
And he owns the means of production, in as much as that he's built this whole rocket company that can deliver. Previously, they were all beholden to the so-called commercial, i.e. big government launches 5-6 years ago, when people tried to get a very similar business underway, and the price was prohibitive. But this guy has put together a platform, a launch platform, which is now working. He has now used a rocket 3 times. Which is, and there's another one being launched in 6 hours, just over 6 hours, or just under 7 hours. Unfortunately, that's not going to be recovered. That's a one-way mission, because he's launching it. It's a heavy payload to a high orbit, so they're going to crash it out into the sea. But he's already demonstrated that he can reuse his rockets 3 times. What'll probably happen is, as they get more into the risk zone, he will start sending them up with his loads, and his loads will consist of satellites, communication satellites, for a system that Tesla have just, it's been announced for a while, but they're getting more official about it now, called StarLink. And the first phase will be probably within 2 years will be flying, and that'll be 800 satellites covering the northern hemisphere. 4,000 satellites will cover the whole world, and eventually, they reckon within 8 to 12 years, there'll be 12,000 satellites, all part of the Starlink network, including backups and all that type of thing. But his aim is to provide low latency, high-speed internet anywhere in the world. Now, as is usual with these things, there are a couple of companies trying to do the same thing. So Virgin, with Richard Branson, has announced a system which orbits at a higher rate, so the latency will be slightly lower. But it'll still provide competition. It'll be usable for you and me. It'll be perfectly usable. Samsung have a mid-orbiting system that they're considering at 400 kilometers. Facebook are investigating the same thing. Now, no one's really put any numbers out there. The numbers you can get from StarLink is using a pizza box-sized aerial, which you can put on a building or on a cell tower or wherever you want. You will get up to a gigabit connection, right? What people are, you read on, the font of all knowledge, probably Reddit, is that they can see things like $50 a month will get you unlimited, 100 megabits up, 100 megabits down, 50 megabits up. In this case, it'll be literally up because it's to a satellite, right? All the backhaul from point A to point B will all happen between the satellites. So nothing will happen on the ground. They all talk to each other. It's
just a big network.
And Tesla or Musk got into a lot of trouble because he basically hired the brains trust from Broadcom, which is a networking company, about a year ago.
Right.
He basically took their whole development laboratory, right?
Well, that's why.
As you do.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they're talking sort of $50 a month.
Yeah.
You will have an always-on 100/50 megabit connection.
No matter where you are.
No matter where you are, to use whatever you want. So you wouldn't have you wouldn't bother with you wouldn't bother with your home internet.
You wouldn't bother
anymore.
with anything.
You wouldn't bother with anything. Yes.
Crikey.
The business he's going to go after initially is the high-cost, low-latency connections between the commercial centres of the world. So he's targeting the Northern Hemisphere firstly because most of the world actually happens to lie in the Northern Hemisphere.
Of course.
But he wants to join London, New York, Chicago, the stock markets, because at the moment they're paying billions of dollars a year for very high speed.
And that's the speed of computer decision making.
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
So if you're slower on a slower network or further away physically than the other guy, you're at a nanosecond disadvantage.
Yeah.
With this system, everyone's equal, are they?
Fast and super fast.
Yeah.
So they'll get faster connections than we'll get. Yeah. So he reckons that'll pay for it. So that'll pay for the system. Just those connections will pay for the system. So in a decade,
we should be hooked up to this. Us in the street.
So
like the scooters we see now that we weren't talking about a few months ago will be now switching onto this.
It's a slightly bigger if, because you've got to get a lot of satellites into the sky.
Yeah, but when you've got the launch vehicles, and you do it over and over again successfully, what do you need to know?
Well, they reckon he can get a launch down on his Block 5 once he gets into the 10 to 12th launch.
Yeah.
They reckon he's getting a launch down to about $8 million.
And how many? As
opposed to over 100.
And what's the payload on that big one? It's tons and tons.
The big rocket, the BFR, the Big Falcon rocket, or it's called something else now, Starship.
Yeah.
Some people are saying the main reason for developing that is the headline one's Mars. The real headline one is so he can put 50 tons of satellites into orbit at once.
That's it, because if you want to do quantity,
you just get them all up there at once.
You can't have like as many satellites as launches as there are satellites.
That would reduce the number of launches required by 2/3 if he'd had the big rocket.
So what can that lift? We should look it up, but it's in the tons. Isn't it?
Oh no, gosh, it's very much in the tons.
Yeah, gee.
Yeah.
Okay, so cell towers become defunct. Any landlines or fibre cable becomes
cell
defunct.
Towers might not become.
Well, it's but a lot reduced.
But they'll have a StarLink uplink on them instead of a connection to the Spark network.
Yeah.
So the cell tower might be there, but in actual fact, they'll just be on buildings.
You'll have a whole bunch of just resellers of this system, won't you? That's how it'll.
Well, I don't know if you'll have any resellers. I think.
Well, you do it like the app, like
you'll just go onto the internet, open an account.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you'll be paying your $50 a month to an address in Hawthorne, California, not to anybody here or wherever.
Okay. Well, democratizing of the information flows.
Well,
poor people. This is going to be great for poor parts of the world, though, isn't it? He'll have to do special deals. They're not going to do.
It's 100 tons, they reckon, to low Earth orbit. He should be able to lift. Yeah.
Well, how much do these things weigh?
But I think that'll come down. I think it'll end up at about 50. But anyway, they weigh nothing. They're tiny. They're the size of a small bar fridge.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and he makes the solar cells for it, and he makes this. He does the whole thing. So there's going to be a number of competing systems. The Samsung one has more numbers around it. Whether or not they're just made up, I suspect they probably are. But they reckon they can provide 5 billion people with 200 gigabytes a month of data each. That's the capacity of the network that Samsung are considering.
7 billion.
5 billion people.
5 billion.
So nearly the whole world.
Yeah. Wow.
200 gigabytes per person per month. That's the capacity.
Version 1.0.
Yes.
The first generation of it.
Now, of course, Samsung do have a problem. They don't have the rockets. They'd have to go and negotiate with someone. They'd probably have to go to SpaceX.
That's the very clever thing, isn't it? That's the very, very clever thing about that
and
particular
he'll say,
individual.
because he has to give equal access to everyone, he says, I don't have a rocket for you right now, mate, but I've got a tunnel under Los Angeles. Do you want to put him in there for a while?
All right. And speaking of big competition, have you been keeping an eye on Prime Air, the Amazon carrier?
No, the only thing I think about now is StarLink.
Okay. Well,
I don't do anything else.
That's it blocked out everything else. Eh?
Yeah, it's all gone.
There's talk now of this. Of course, that's the Bezos-owned entity. There's talk of this actually potentially.
Who also has a huge rocket.
Exactly.
New Glenn.
It's called vertical integration.
The biggest rocket.
Yeah. This Prime Air, he's buying up old 767s.
Yes.
They're saying it could get as big as, because of what powers it, as FedEx and, I think I heard this right, and UPS combined.
So I think Bezos is going to do something very clever, and it's going to be, because I work in that industry, sort of.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be fantastic, because Bezos is going to stop the middlemen clipping the ticket, and he's going to give the parcels for final mile delivery to the United States Postal Service, I expect, in most markets. In the big cities, he might do the deliveries himself, but I think he'll come to a deal with the United States Postal Service that they will be the delivery agents.
And he'll do international, because he's got so many overseas orders from Amazon warehouses and stuff that they've got the traffic. I wouldn't be surprised if that does go that way, and you can see that it's possible it could, that there would be talk about reactivating A380 freighter. I mean, if you're at that scale and you're carting that much around,
you need to,
and it's not heavy goods, eh?
No,
it's cubic.
Well, it's phone cases and piercing.
It just takes up room.
Piercings.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, it is quite interesting. I was at a sorting system the other day, and these tiny little packets were coming through, and actually most of them were falling on the floor because they skip off the belts, and it's a bit of a nightmare, actually.
Yeah, no one thought of that.
No, they're thinking about it quite a lot now. But it was actually surprising. You'd pick them up and you'd have a look at the label, and there's a thing called, that we call them China labels, and everyone's trying to develop a China label reader and all this type of thing, and they're actually being very successful using deep learning and some of those tools.
Deep learning.
Yeah, and it's actually really clever. But like super clever. You wouldn't believe from what it can extract address information.
Be careful.
Yeah.
They'll end up owning us.
But a lot of the things
You're making me nervous.
A lot of the things in there were like nose rings and lip rings, and it was just weird. There was a I thought a disproportionate number of that type of thing, but it could have just been that a place in China had dumped,
or there was a convention
or something. But I was just like, man,
there'll be an explanation for that.
Well, I hope there is.
But this guy is, you can see how big this could get.
Oh, huge.
I wonder if you're FedEx and
you look, their share price really went down. It's like, did you hear about Kylie Jenner? I'm pretty sure you follow them a lot. I mean, I don't even know.
This is the trans person.
No. Oh, that's her.
Caitlyn Jenner.
Yes, that's her. You've got to be very careful what we say here, mate.
Well, I don't want to go there.
Yeah, but she said, Snapchat, has anybody opened that app recently? And she said it on Facebook or something, and Snapchat lost $1.5 billion in value.
Ooh.
And FedEx and UPS didn't lose that much value, but when Bezos said, we're going to start our own airline, they lost a lot of value.
They're cranking through that company in Israel who does stuff. They must be up to their eyeballs in work.
Yeah. Isn't that the type of thing New Zealand could have?
We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
We have talked about that before, and absolutely yes is the answer to that.
Yeah.
Pity about that. Do you want me to give you an update on Bring Our Birds Home, Martin?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, well, we've had a very good week this week. First, let's go through the aircraft. I think everybody is aware that we've secured off the DC-8 and the 737. I had a message from Brazil today that we're recording from our representative, Cesar Nogueira, who said he's been told we will have the piece of paper within 30 days. Within now 30 days. That's what he tells me, and he's pretty straight shooter. Cesar has been great for us. So that's good to know. It's the problem we want to have in 30 days is that problem of having it available for us to buy. Got to find the money, of course, but we're doing that. 737 sitting there waiting, all good. Trying to do some behind-the-scenes work, arrange a media event in Charlotte, North Carolina, to try and get some activity to power a GoFundMe page, which we're going to set up. So that's progressing. But the big news this week is that I got a call from Mario, the Cuban ambassador to New Zealand, who has since our friend Steve Wild, friend of Bring Our Birds Home, went to Havana in September and met up with the people at the Civil Aviation Department there and got a dialogue going, and of course took that beautiful footage of the DC-10 from his 1954 Pontiac that he hired for a couple of days. They've come back to us and said, okay, here's how you can have the plane.
So you got a plan.
So we've got a plan. Now, I don't want to say what those specifics are because we've got to work towards them, but I would say they're completely doable, and it ends up really in the best case scenario of it just being a donation. So the big point is, though, they know who we are. We're on their radar. Yeah. They know we want this thing. They have told us that it's going nowhere. Don't worry. It's going to sit there. And here's the way that we can make this happen. And we've looked at it and gone, that ain't too hard.
Yeah. So the wheels are turning, definitely
The wheels are turning. What it means, though, is that, because remember, mission one was always save. Stop them, prevent them from being trashed, right?
Yeah.
And that was real high probability. But that's done now. Pending deals on the table, all known price ranges, everything like that. Not too shocking, folks, not too shocking. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
All we got to do is use the smarts and join the dots up and make these deals work, and they'll be on their way.
So what you're saying, for not much money, New Zealand, a country which is basically completely dependent upon aviation
and growing its national identity and economy over many decades.
For not much money, New Zealand could have like a really good aircraft museum.
Oh, absolutely. Now, here's the other bit of news. Apart from our flyers now being printed and out, I'm happy about getting those out before the end of the year. The folks who own the Transport and Toy Museum in Wanaka have just come across a whole collection of aircraft in Australia from a museum that's closing down in Australia, including a Royal Australian Navy Hawker Siddeley 748.
Which museum's this?
I don't know if I can mention it at the moment, but you know, having the 748, because there are no Mount Cook 748s left. Okay. They're all gone. But this is like a 748. We'll get that, and there's a whole bunch of other planes. They'll be part of this too. So you can see this is starting to become, if we do our business and get our thing done, and these other aircraft, he's definitely getting them because they're giving them away. This thing's had to close down. This is going to become quite a stunning collection, I tell you.
Is it a 748 or an Andover?
No, 748.
Because I'd love to see an Andover with a belly that dropped down on those cables.
I've got footage.
Yeah.
They were grunt machines. They'd stop on a dime because those things in reverse, man.
Yeah. Oh, talking about reverse, did you see that picture on airliners.net of the Illusion 76 TD?
Something happened with the thrust reverser.
Yeah, they put reverse thrust on, and one of the buckets came off and smashed its way through the wing and set fire to it.
Yeah. Right off.
Well, they were going to replace that half of the wing. Yeah. But then they decided it's quite hard.
Because there are a lot of, it is hard, but there are a lot of IL-76s sitting around at airports.
This is a TD, though, so I think that's quite a new one, isn't it?
Okay, yeah. What did that TD stand for?
I don't know.
Have to look it up. But anyway, so that's a great thing. So a bigger thing is coming together, Martin, is what I'm saying.
Yes, it's all happening.
I think next year is going to be a fascinating year. I got to pass out my condolences to some guys who are doing a similar effort in Canada, but for some Pakistani airliners that were the last remaining on the planet, as I've been saying, the expression I use. And one of the DC-10s they were after got crushed a couple of weeks ago. And you know, it's not like a person dying or anything, but it's kind of sad when you don't get to it in time, you know? And that's what I've always been worried about with our ones, getting to it in time. So condolences, Samir, and your folks, but we've still got a few other options maybe could work on. But that was one of their DC-10s. They got DC-10s in the same year as we did, 1973, Pakistan. And they actually swapped them in the end with CP Air, a Canadian carrier, for 747s on a one-for-one basis, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
So they actually, the Pakistani DC-1030s ended up in Canada. And the early CP Air 74200s went to Pakistan.
It was quite interesting as a kid. You could get toy airplanes, and for some reason, a lot of them seem to have CP Air logos on them, and I never knew what CP Air was.
Maybe they had to deal with a toy, because they had the orange, remember? And their lovely polished aluminium lower skin.
Yeah, well, on the cheap toys I was getting, there was a rather sort of cloudy, muddy grey.
Yeah.
But they had the orange and CP Air.
I think they got dissolved into Air Canada in the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really sinking feeling. I had that with the 737 in North Carolina. I was told it had been crushed. I called the number that I had of the company that apparently owned it. I still haven't quite got to the bottom of this. I got told it was crushed. And that was a real blow, like a...
Yeah, all over.
I almost cried. Yeah. And then, of course, we went and found another one, NQC, which is flying again in Canada. It's up in the, with the gravel kit on and all that, up in the northern part of Canada. But then I got sent a picture at the end of, it would be last year now. It's end of 2017, or the beginning of 2018, saying the airline is still sitting there. I've just taken this photo.
Crushed the wrong one.
And it was like, it came back again. It was the craziest thing. But what I'm saying is I know how it feels when you think you've missed it. It's a real downer because you can't get them back, you see.
No.
Anyway, and to some it's just junk.
Yeah.
Taking up room. I believe, though, that second-hand, I don't think there are any lower-hour second-hand DC-10s anywhere, but some of the components have become more valuable since the Air Force starting to really get on, in age with their KC-10 fleet.
Yeah.
They would have flown a lot less hours than the commercial planes, but they're starting to get up there now. So they're looking for landing gear components and things like that.
You see, Lockheed and Airbus have got together to revisit the whole tanker.
Huh?
The US tanker thing, right. They've entered a formal alliance.
They're going to have another go.
They're going to have another go at offering commercial.
Because they're making
commercial tanker program.
The 767s are now coming off the line, aren't they?
Yeah, not as fast or as cheap as initially anticipated, and not as capable.
It's honestly like rebuilding an early 80s car or something.
It's just bizarre.
It's pork. That's what it is. It's
but I don't know whether it's actually Boeing want to do that anymore, actually. I bet they're thinking, what have you got this old factory cranking over?
Well, they're still making 76s for FedEx and ANA, wasn't it? And JAL have even taken some...
the ANA A380 looks nice.
Oh, there we go.
The obvious, they made it into a turtle. Of course they should have made it into a whale.
Okay, but it does...
It looks fantastic.
Catch your eye. But I wonder how that'll go for them.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because they could end up buying... a few of those if it works out.
Yeah, they'll be packing them. Because
remember they had those short range 747s at 550.
The SRs.
Why don't they have short range A380s?
Yeah.
What's changed?
Well, they've got short range 777s.
Well, they do 500 in those.
They've got 777s. Also similar seating.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress.
Yes, so things are ticking along, but of course, folks, we need donations and support. And go to our Facebook page for that. So when we come back in the new year, we're going to try and put more content into this podcast, and we welcome suggestions for content. It'll be a bit dependent on our availability, because we've got other lives, right? We have other lives, so they have to be able to tick. Well, we've got other jobs and things, but we'll do our best. And we look forward to bringing some more characters on board and getting that distribution out and growing it through 2019. And of course, Martin, with our project, Bring Our Birds Home, there could be a TV series come together next year. So I really just don't know what to expect in 2019.
Could be crazy.
Could be crazy. Yeah. One thing I do want to do, and if folks are listening, actually, here we go, because you never know who's listening, is that we have decided to put together our own dismantling team.
Okay.
It makes perfect sense in the end when you run the numbers and you look at the skill base, who's there, and the information that we can access. We can pretty well competently do it ourselves and involve a wide range of people, retired engineers. People have volunteered already. There are engineering institutions.
What do you need? The cold chisel and the jaws of life?
Well, no, you need... Well, no. It's not how you do it at all. It needs to be done in a very methodical, caring way.
A lot of drilling, right? Drilling out rivets.
Yeah, but only at production joints.
Yeah.
It's a plan, right? So we're going to do that. Now, if anyone is interested in being part of that effort, should it come about. Who knows what will happen.
Yeah.
Message, Bring Our Birds Home. Send us a message through, just so I've got your name and details, and maybe what you can, because you want experience. You are not maybe necessarily with aviation, but with reasonably high level of engineering quality. You want people who can work with that.
You want the type of people who have watched A-Bomb 79 on YouTube. A-Bomb 79 on YouTube. Watch that. If you like that, you're good for this project.
All right. So that's what we're going to do. And that could cover 3 aircraft as we see it at the moment in different parts of the world. I see adventure, Martin, written all over it. Adventure.
Yeah. Or people that watch A-Bomb actually don't want adventure. They want micromillimeters of machining purity.
Okay. No, well, that sounds too excessive.
It's fantastic.
But I just know that it will be such a feel-good thing to do. You'll be doing your patriotic duty, actually, by helping out here.
There you go. Well, you've just sold it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I'm probably going to offer you a place, but how expensive are you on a daily basis?
As long as I get to use a chainsaw a lot, I'm cool.
No chainsaws.
Okay.
Though they use those electric cutters now, which are really precise.
Oh, the reciprocating saws. Yeah,
they're a beam, I think, or a.
Oh, yeah. Then I'm definitely
like a laser.
We're doing plasma cutters. I'm there,
and you can do really fine cutting. So I've got to look into that too.
Plasma cutters.
That might be the way we do it.
Very cool.
Though out in the field in Manaus, or it's like, did you bring the plasma cutter? Oh, I forgot it.
No,
I left it in wherever.
Yeah,
it got sent to the wrong.
I think it'll be drilling and tapping. Drilling holes and tapping out rivets. But anyway, we'll see how we go.
You probably want to be a project manager, though.
No, I've got to be on the tools, mate.
Best practice.
Got me boots and my high vis.
Yeah, that's right. You have your high vis and you'll be going around with your clipboard.
No, I'm a rubbish project manager. I get too shouty too quickly.
Okay. All right, you've just talked me out of that one. All right, so that's pretty well it. Oh, I see a couple of pictures of 777X production going on. So that first aircraft's going to take form shortly.
Looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it's going to be big.
Yeah.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that'll be next year, won't it? So that's a 2019 highlight, let's say. What are you doing for Christmas? Oh, you said that you couldn't say. It's some secret thing.
It's all secret.
I'm going to be in Wellington.
It's all secret.
With family.
It's all secret.
Notice how I'm transparent here. I'm going to be with family, just lying on the beach, hopefully.
Well, probably not. It's Wellington. Yeah.
Might be one of those freak years.
Yeah.
Where it's nice.
Yeah.
And there's no wind. Anyway, you have a great Christmas.
You too.
And thank you, everybody, for listening to the reboot. The reboot. That's the word. We just didn't get that word.
We're getting old and stupid.
It was like restart and come back. No, reboot.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll talk to you again early in the new year. Have a great Christmas. See you around.
Merry Christmas.